Hello and welcome to the Atomic Lizards podcast. It's time for our Now Playing series where we look at the newest movies and TV shows currently playing and streaming. I'm Miranda the Film Fanatic.
I'm Udi, the de facto film expert.
And I'm Dan, the kaiju extraordinaire.
On today's episode of Now Playing, we'll be discussing the latest entry in the Alien franchise, Alien Romulus.
Alien Romulus primarily takes place on the abandoned and near-wrecked twin Weyland-Yutani research stations Romulus and Remus. When a group of young, disillusioned space colonists decide to board the Romulus in search of resources to help them escape their doomed futures on the mining colony, they discover the most terrifying creature in the universe.
Alien Romulus is a 2024 movie directed by Fede Alvarez, who also co-wrote the film with Rodo Sayagas. This is the first Alien film in 7 years, as the last one was 2017's Alien Covenant, which was directed by series creator Ridley Scott. It stars Kaylee Spaney, David Johnson, Archie Renault, Isabella Merced, Spike Fern, and Aileen Wu.
As always, this episode will have spoilers, so go watch it if you haven't yet. What did you guys think of Alien Romulus? Let's start with you, Dan.
Little backstory with Alien. I was never too big into the Alien franchise before. I didn't really start getting into it until I got into high school, because there was one night where me and my two good friends decided to just marathon all the Alien movies in one night. And so we watched the first Alien, which is great. If you have not seen the first Alien, it is if you're a fan of science fiction or horror movies, it is a must. Please go watch the first Alien. It is a great movie. And then Aliens is also really good. And then I ended up falling asleep around Alien 3, so I don't have a lot of memories of that one, but from what I hear from the community, Alien 3 is kind of not that great anyway. And then the less we talk about Alien Resurrection, the better. And it was funny because I had actually seen Prometheus in theaters before I had seen any of the Alien movies, because I went with my mom and my aunt because they wanted to take me out to a movie. So we were looking around seeing, oh, what's a good movie that we can go out and see, and we chose Prometheus. And I had no idea that it was even connected to the Alien franchise until the very end, where we see the little I guess spoilers for Prometheus, but where we see the little xenomorph creatures. So and then I did see Alien Covenant when that came out, but I honestly do not remember much of that film at all. So here we are with Alien Romulus. I loved Alien Romulus. I thought it was one of the best Alien movies in quite some time, up until those last 15 to 20 minutes. Now, I will say that those last 15 to 20 minutes did not bring the film down for me at all. I still think this was a great movie. And if you're an Alien fan or you have any type of interest in these movies, I think you should go see this one ASAP. But yeah, those 15 to 20 minutes, they do something, and I'm sure we'll get into it later, but they do something with those 15 to 20 minutes that's I really just don't know how I feel about it, because it's something that I feel has been attempted in the series before. And when it was attempted before, I didn't think it was a very cool idea then. And I still kind of don't think it's a very cool idea now. So I'm kind of iffy on that. But everything before that is great. The acting is great. This movie introduces some really cool ideas with the relationship between Rain and Andy that we'll talk about later. It introduces a cool idea there that I feel the franchise has never really explored before. The sound design is really good, really freaking good. I feel like it's one of the best aspects of the movie is the sound design. And it does good on the horror too. As I don't know if we've mentioned this before on the podcast, but I am not a horror movie guy. I hate horror movies. I mean, it really depends on the horror movie. Like slasher films like Halloween, I don't mind, and I love creature features like Alien. But when it comes to supernatural and creepy ghosts and stuff like that, I'm out. But I was willing to, go see this one, even though it's a horror movie, because it's Alien, and I love Alien, and I was willing to look past that. And yeah, it's a great horror movie. There's plenty of scares to be had. There's one like really good jump scare, and one of the reasons why I hate horror movies is because of the jump scares. But I will give this movie credit. It has a really good jump scare in there. So, but yeah, I enjoyed Alien Romulus. I think you should go see it. It'll be interesting to see how those last 15 to 20 minutes will affect everyone. You're either going to think it's cool or you're either not going to like it too much. But what about you guys? What about you, Miranda? What did you think of Alien Romulus?
Yeah, so my connection with the Alien franchise, I guess I'll start there. I watched the first one for the first time, and I didn't like it. And then I watched Aliens, and I was like, oh, I like this one more. And then I rewatched Alien, and I was like, oh, actually, this is a great film. This is fantastic. Like it's so well thought out. It's interesting. I felt the same way with Alien as I felt the first time watching John Carpenter's The Thing. I think it's just because they're a little more like, we're gonna make things creepy, where you're gonna be on the edge of your seat the moment the first picture, the first frame is on screen, and we're just gonna make sure you're totally freaked out by the end of the film, or grossed out, or feel unpleasant, or stuff of that nature. So I did that, and I was like, well, let's check out Alien 3. So watch that. Turns out I don't like it. It made me gag. I think it's the CGI dog xenomorph creature things. I don't know. Something was off about it. I have not rewatched that one. So I've only seen the original 3. I have not seen the prequels. Are they prequels? I don't know. I guess the ones with Michael Fassbender in them. So I have not seen those. I've watched like everything great about them and like the kill count, but you really don't get the true essence of a movie from those things, although fun to watch. And technically kill count is a critical is a content analysis. So anyways, we're not here to discuss the types of video essays out there and critical analysis and all those theories. We're here to talk about Alien Romulus, which I found to be kind of gross and unpleasant. That does not mean I did not like the film. I actually really enjoyed watching it, but there are scenes that are grotesque and uncomfortable, and obviously that's like the point of Alien. It's a horror movie, it's gonna do that. And like I think it succeeds as an Alien movie, as the formula is people in space go to place, get attacked by alien, then die. Like that's the Alien formula. So it succeeds on that end. And I think everyone in the movie did a good job. I really don't like the little face crawlers crawling around in an abandoned space station. That was creepy and spider-like, and I was like, nope. And the human xenomorph creature at the end, I was like, no, thank you. We don't want that. And basically the whole time in the theater, I was sitting there with my hoodie up over my head, covering like my mouth, like pulling tight on my hoodie string with my knees to my chest. So I guess that probably says it all on my reaction to the movie. But yeah, it's a fun watch. If you like Alien, I think you'll like this movie. Or if you've never seen an Alien one, this one isn't a bad one to start off with, although I suggest the original. But I'll shift over to Udi. What are your thoughts?
I really like this movie. I was very pleasantly surprised because while I was getting pretty hyped for this movie, I have been kind of burned before. So I guess again, just to give backstory on my history with the Alien franchise, like you guys have done, I have been a fan of the Alien movies since I was a kid. I don't know from what age I started watching the Alien movies, but again, like a few other movies, probably more young than I should have been. But it's been kind of cool because I remember like the first couple of times I watched Alien, like I was legitimately scared. I thought the xenomorph was terrifying, but I was also a kid, so it makes sense. But yeah, just the whole franchise. Like I've been a fan of the whole franchise since I can remember. Some movies more than others. Obviously primarily Alien and Aliens. I actually haven't watched Alien 3 or Alien Resurrections since I was a kid. So I don't really remember much about them. I remember like broad strokes about the ideas and the things that go on in that film, or those films, I mean. But other than that, I don't really remember much about them. So the main ones I do remember are Alien, Aliens, Prometheus, and Alien Covenant. And I would say the Alien Covenant was the one that burned me the most. I actually really liked Prometheus when it came out, and I liked it for a few years afterwards. And I mean, I'm not trying to say that it's a bad movie or anything, but like it's a gorgeous movie. The cast is great. It has some decent performances. The production design is great. Yeah, again, just like a gorgeous movie. Same with Alien Covenant. Alien Covenant is a like phenomenally gorgeous movie, but I do feel like maybe the ideas behind them were great, but the execution was a little lackluster. And I know some people won't agree, but I don't think that those films are as like if they had been successful in what they had set out to do, I think they would be like phenomenal movies, like some of the best sci-fi movies ever, but I just don't think that they achieved what they were trying to. And so unfortunately they're a little lackluster to me, but they're still enjoyable movies and I still watch them every once in a while. But yeah, so Alien Romulus, I was looking forward to it because I love, love, love the original Alien, and I'm actually one of the types of people that like Alien more than Aliens, but I'm also more of a horror guy. I mean, I like action films. I grew up on action films. I've watched plenty and plenty and plenty of action films, but I just love a good horror movie, and like Alien was definitely kind of like a building block as a kid for me. Like just not only did it kind of again give me a new horror movie to experience when I was a kid, but from the sci-fi perspective, it's cool, and in my opinion, it's one of the all-time greats. Just because it's aged incredibly well. Yeah, there's some stuff that can be goofy if you're not willing to just like take a movie for what it is, but I still think it's really great. But anywho, so yeah, Alien Romulus, really loved it. Lived up to the hype for me. There's like one main sticking point that we'll get to later, but I'm also not like just because it had that one creative choice that I wasn't the biggest fan of that I felt was totally unnecessary and just like I wish they hadn't done. I believe that the one creative choice shouldn't, drag the rest of the film down. It's like I still really liked it. Probably one of my favorite movies of the year so far, honestly. It's exactly what I would want out of an Alien film because I'm not saying that an Alien film can't be more, as like there have been a few that have, tried to create discourse around different philosophical ideas and just a lot of other thematic content. But so, obviously they can do that, and that's interesting and that's cool. And again, like they have brought up some interesting ideas and themes, but I just feel like those have been a little lackluster in execution because it's like they're torn between trying to be something more while using the Alien franchise or just being more simple and entertaining. And there's nothing wrong with that either, but I just feel like those other films haven't found a good balance where like maybe this goes too far in the other direction again of like just being kind of all entertainment and not having much substance, but honestly, I don't even care. This movie is gorgeous. The sound design is freaking incredible. I saw this in Dolby twice. Oh my god, that was incredible. Just visually, this is one of the most gorgeous movies I've seen in a while. The practical effects were stunning. The performances were pretty good. Yeah, this is pretty much what I would want out of an Alien film. It's like playing with a similar setup as most of the other movies in the franchise, but doing it in a fun way with a great cast. I love this cast, and yeah, I really couldn't have asked for. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to be picky because I could have asked for more, but I think this far surpassed my expectations. So here's hoping that the next one will be even better. And also, just putting this out there, and I know that other people feel the same way, but hey, if anyone ever wants to do a Dead Space movie, please, 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 please hire Fede Alvarez because holy crap, he would knock it out of the park. Oh my god.
I just want to say that I agree. I would love to see this guy do a Dead Space movie. I love
Yeah.
Dead Space. See, that's another, like I said before, I don't like horror movies, but I'll make an exception for Dead Space. I love Dead Space.
And especially with the remake that came out last year, like not that it would have to be one for one of that, but like they kind of figured out like you could pretty much adapt that one for one and even keep like the art style of that game, like the remake, and it would translate perfectly to a movie. So, but anyway, we should probably get on to the discussion. So I guess we can talk about it outright just to kind of get it out of the way. Did you guys feel that there was too much fan service in this movie to the point where it bothered you? And if so, was there anything in particular that bothered you? And yes, I'm definitely probing because I think there's definitely one big thing that has been pretty controversial, but I'll let you guys answer first.
I know exactly what you're referencing with that question.
I figured as much.
Yeah. So what Udi's talking about is, so if people who have seen the original Alien, there's a synthetic in that movie called Ash. And what they do is, so that actor's dead. What they do for Alien Romulus is they took that same actor and CGI'd his face a la Christopher Reeve from The Flash, or what's the name of that one guy from Star Wars that's dead? And they used him in Rogue One, I think.
I know who you're talking about. I can't think of
Tarkin, like how they did with him. So they do that with, now I don't remember the name of the actor, unfortunately, who played Ash in the original Alien, but they do that with him. And he's a different character in this movie. He's not Ash, he goes by Rook now. And he was on the space station that the main characters infiltrate near the beginning of the movie.
Quick fun fact, the guy who plays Ash is the original Bilbo Baggins in Lord of the Rings.
Oh,
What? Really?
I forgot
Fun
about
fact
that.
of the day.
I didn't wait. So like he played Bilbo Baggins in the Peter Jackson movies?
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that.
By the way,
Okay.
just for the record, his name is Ian Holm.
Ian Holmes. Okay. That's cool. I didn't know that. That's awesome. So Ian Holmes then. They bought Ian Holm. Okay.
Yeah.
Ian Holm. They bought Ian Holm back from the dead through CGI so he could not really reprise his role, because he's not playing Ash from the original Alien. He's playing a different character called Rook. But in my eyes, he essentially just felt like the same character, though. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, and I mean, that's probably by design. It's probably part of why they brought him back. So, okay, I guess just to put this out there, apparently there's an interview with Fede Alvarez where he's talking about this, and the reason that they apparently chose to do Ash/Rook is because they felt bad that like pretty much every other android in the franchise got to be in like the films more, and they never brought back Ian Holm to do another one. And so apparently they reached out to someone in his estate. I don't know if it was his wife or just someone. It was just someone in his family. And apparently they reached out and they're like, hey, like, we feel kind of bad. Like, he never got a chance to, be in this world again. And he was great. Like, would you guys be okay if we brought him back? And they're like, oh my God, yeah, that'd be so great. Like, that'd be awesome. Get a chance for him to be back in the universe. So, like, at least they went about it in the best way possible. But I just, like, at least for me, it's just one of those things where it's just unnecessary. Like, at the end of the day, even like, let's say under best circumstances, like the family / like his estate, like they genuinely aren't trying to like use his likeness and his name to, just earn free money basically. And like, they actually care about his legacy and whatever. Like, best case scenario, like, let's just assume that that's true. And so like, they actually did want to do this just for, good reasons. And like the money was just kind of bonus or whatever. Not that, just, okay, well, let's just leave it at that. Like, okay, best case scenario, like, that's cool. But I just feel like they could have just not done it. And I think that the film would be way better off for it, because it wouldn't have turned off people who are against all of like this dead actor being placed in a movie for corporate profit, basically, because it's kind of what always ends up happening. It wouldn't have upset those people, which, I mean, again, it's very understandable because it is kind of just gross. I mean, like, someone died. We can't just let them rest. I know, like, sometimes it's like, I mean, it's always unfortunate. Someone just died, but like, sometimes, you want to see those people because they're fantastic actors. You want to see them in those roles again, whatever. But it's just not. Even though it's possible, I don't know. It just isn't something that I feel like should be done if you can avoid it. But in this case, it especially just felt unnecessary. Like, I don't think that him being Rook added anything to the character. Like, it's a completely brand new character. It didn't have to be him. So like, it could have, for example, it could have been like Michael Fassbender. It could have totally been someone entirely new. It could have been David Johnson, who plays Andy in the film. It could have been another Andy model or something. Like, there's just so many different versions of this where it could have been someone else, and it probably would have just been better. And so I don't know. I just felt like one of those things where it's like they did it, and at least they did it in the best way possible. But it's just one of those things like they didn't need to, and it just kind of brought the movie down for no reason, no good reason. But yeah. That being said, I will just say as well that despite it looking not great at first, it's one of those rare cases where like the more or like the further the movie goes and like the longer the movie goes on, if like the effects actually look better, I feel like. And especially after watching it the second time and paying more attention to it, I couldn't help but notice. But yeah, like it starts out pretty rough. Like, oof, that does not look good. And then the more it goes on, like the more he's emotional. Like, there's like one shot in particular where Rook is crawling across like this computer to like reach this monitor or whatever and try to communicate with Mother or something. And it legitimately looks pretty freaking fantastic for being like a digital effect. So I mean, I don't know what that's about, but I mean, that's pretty cool, I guess. Shout out to the VFX workers. And I guess that being said too, it's not all just AI. Like they actually did get a performer to like be there and act it out, and then they just like VFX'd over him and just modulated his voice. So like at least again, they did it in the best way possible, and it was all meant to be like in honor of him. But again, it's just one of those not like great things where it's like I get the idea behind it, but it didn't need to happen. But yeah, sorry, I talked a lot. So you guys can, if you guys have any other thoughts, feel free to jump in.
Yeah, Udi, I largely agree with you. I kind of don't think that bringing Ian Holm back was necessary because, like you were saying, it could have been any other character. It could have been Michael Fassbender. It could have been another version of David Johnson. But in the end, that's what they decided to do. And they got to have their callbacks be. So I guess technically this could be considered. I don't know. Could this be considered a legacy sequel? Because it takes place in between Alien and Aliens.
I would say it'd probably still be a legacy sequel.
Yeah. So in a way, it could be considered a legacy sequel. So they got to have, the nostalgic ties to the original. They got to have their callbacks. But yeah, I agree. I don't think it had to be Ian Holm. It didn't have to be. But like you were saying, at least they did it in the respectful way. At least they reached out to his estate and they had approval, unlike Christopher Reeve in The Flash, where, yeah, that's a whole nother story there. So at least it was done in a respectful way.
It's interesting to hear both your guys' points on this topic. But I really don't know what is considered fan service in this movie because like they have a android who was in the other one who is a current model they're using, so it like makes sense for him to be there. And also, wouldn't you argue that the xenomorph would be fan service too? Like, I don't know if it's because I'm not like I mean I've seen half of the Alien movies, so like it didn't really feel fan service to me, or they were like shoving in a bunch of random stuff from the other movies to get a quick buck. Like by having Rook there, I was just like, oh, okay, this is just an android that like lives out in the universe and there's multiple of them. And but in terms of like them using the original actor's like image, if they went through the proper channels and asked permission, I mean, that's what they did. I'm pretty sure that's what they did with Tarkin too. But it is kind of a iffy situation because it's like deep fakes are getting better and better, so they're more likely to like replicate real people, and that like is not a good thing because you need like consent and like there's rules and regulations that need to be made in order to make sure people are being safe and not using it for like nefarious reasons. So like it is kind of like a wishy-washy line, but in terms of like this character being in the movie, I don't see any problems with it. So I'm not really sure why a lot of people are having issues with this character being in it, even though it's a different character, it's a different android. This android's being used in the franchise. This is literally a sequel to the first movie, so I don't know. That's my stance on it. So I didn't really think much about it.
Yeah, that's fair. And I just wanted to clarify because you were like, you were saying you weren't sure what exactly Udi meant by fan service. So the way that I didn't define fan service, it's like what you said earlier, Miranda. It's when they shove in like a whole bunch of references and Easter eggs to past films. So like having Ian Holm in there, even though he's playing a different character, even though it makes sense in the world of the movie, it's still a callback to the first Alien film because it's the same actor essentially playing the same character.
Yeah,
So like,
sure.
yeah.
But at what point does a callback become fan service? Like films and media and stuff have been making callbacks to things all the time. But if it was 20 years ago, would we still call it fan service? Or is that a new term that is coming around in this space where we're talking about movies and media? Because like in Twisters, they make callbacks to the other things, but those things like Dorothy, the machine they have, I wouldn't consider that a fan service.
I mean, I don't know the exact line, and I would definitely say that maybe the whole fan service thing, not entirely, completely, is. I'm not trying to what's it called? Like discredit the phrase, but to some degree, it could probably be heightened by like the sort of internet hate culture where everything is a negative. Like, oh, you reference this thing, bad. But
CinemaSins, they started it. It's all because of them. They're like, you said the movie of the title. Ding, you get an anti-point or whatever. This is not the time and place for my anti-CinemaSins rant, but I had to mention it.
Fair
Sorry,
enough.
continue.
Roll credits.
Get that paycheck, Tyrese. Anyway. Yeah, I feel like that, like the Dorothy example is a perfect example of like the Venn diagram of fan service and callback, because I think that is about as tasteful as you can get for like a sort of fan service thing. Basically, fan service to me, in my mind, is basically just something that only fans will understand if they see or if they hear. So it's like something, either whether it's like a blatant like a Marvel cameo, like, oh my god, they just showed this character that it was a secret, we didn't know it was going to be in the movie, oh my god, mind blown. Or if it's something subtle like that, where like I think there's a shot of some device in Alien Romulus that I don't know if it means anything, because like while I'm an Alien fan, I'm not like that, like I'm not like an MC, like it's not compared to like in my MCU fan level, I'm not to that level. So it's like I saw this thing. I'm exposed.
I'm just kidding.
And there was like a musical cue, and I was like, I don't know if this is like a thing, but I don't know what that is. But sure, why not? So like something like that, it's like that's just kind of blatant fan service, because it's like the camera pans and forcefully makes you look at this thing. It's like, I don't know what this is. I don't know why you're showing me this. And it's like, oh, for the fans to be like, oh my god, it's that thing from that one movie. Whereas like again like a callback would just be something more subtle, like kind of like that, like the whole Dorothy thing, where it's shown, it's there, they kind of make reference like, oh, it's this old thing, this old bucket of bolts, and then they kind of just don't talk about it and don't mention it, don't bring up any other history. So I feel like it's a little bit of column A, column B in that case, where it's like they do make like a fun little reference to it as a callback, and it is for like fan service, because it's like people who watch the original will be like, oh my god, it's Dorothy. But otherwise, like that's kind of like a pretty tame thing, I would say, if that makes sense.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I think overall it just kind of depends on the individual to decide what's something like more, what's a callback / fan service moment that's negative / positive. Again, I think there's some that are more collective, or like the Christopher Reeve thing is more negative because just not a good situation. And the Ian Holm thing, again, it's like while the recreation of the dead is kind of in poor taste, they went about it in this case in about the best way possible. So I mean, it's just like it really depends on the individual and how much weight they put in like into how much something is good or bad. There are some people who just like are sick of callback / fan service at this point. So like anything thing like that is just like almost like a trigger to them because like they just get upset, and it's like fair enough, I guess. But I mean, people like that stuff for a reason. So I mean, I don't know. Again, it just depends on the individual. But did you guys have any other? I guess just to look at it positively too. Was there any other fan service you guys liked, or was there anything you guys something else that maybe you guys didn't like that was fan servicey such a callback? I have one particular thing that I thought was cool fan service, I guess, or a callback. But I'll see if you guys say it.
All right. So, now I don't really know if this would be considered fan service per se, but I really liked how they played with like different things that were brought up in like previous Alien movies, like the acid blood, for example. I liked how they played around with that because that's something that's mentioned in like all the Alien movies, and like, you watch an Alien movie, these things have acid blood, and that you don't want to get near it. But this movie does some interesting ideas with the acid blood. Now, once again, I don't know if a death like this has been shown in other Alien movies before, but we actually see somebody who dies from the acid blood, and it's pretty gruesome, and like that was cool. And then they have this like really cool. In fact, it's probably one of my favorite scenes in the movie. They have this really cool like zero G segment where the main character Rain just got done like killing a bunch of aliens with like a pulse rifle. So their blood is just like everywhere, and they're in like zero G right now. So they like have to get through the section without touching the acid blood. And it was a really cool scene. It was like really well done. So like I liked how they played around with like different ideas like that, ideas that were brought up in the previous movies, but not really explored that much. So I kind of liked how they did that, and I liked like just the dude. There were so many face huggers in this movie. Like I couldn't believe it. Like when when the face huggers first start getting like thought out, I was like, oh my god, that's so many face huggers. So that was a lot of fun too, and I liked how I liked that one scene where they had to get through the room without being detected by the face huggers. That was a really cool and like a really tense scene, and it was funny at first because like Andy, by the way, Andy, best boy, best character in the movie. Like
Best
Andy,
boy.
best boy, exactly. So Andy comments about how like the face huggers detect their prey based off of temperature. So like if the room is the same temperature as your body, then it's going to make it harder for them to detect you. And I remember when I first heard that, I was like, "What? Are you telling me that face huggers would just be able to would be blind on like a really hot day? Like, come on." But then it's also revealed that that's not entirely the case. It's also like fear and breathing and a whole bunch of other factors. It's not just body temperature. So once they brought that up, I was like, okay, that's I can buy that more. Because like, yeah, because you're telling me that face huggers could just be defeated on like a hot day. Get out of here. But
They have to
but
earn their fear takedown like Batman.
yeah, but that's besides the point. But yeah, like I said, I don't know if those would be fan service per se, but like I really liked those ideas that the movie had.
Yeah, I won't go like too much into necessarily like the specifics of the scenes, just because you talked about them pretty well. But yeah, like that zero G alien blood, okay, xenomorph blood, I guess, just to be precise. God, that sequence is so freaking cool. Like that was such a good setup. I remember like in the trailer, like I forgot while watching the movie that was a shot in the trailer about like the zero blood floating in. Did I say zero blood? I meant xenomorph blood floating in zero G. There we go. Was like a shot in the trailer. So then when I'm watching the movie, I'm like, oh, what's gonna happen? It's like, oh, is this where like that part happens? And then like it happens. Like, oh my god, so freaking cool. I'm like, okay, well now what? And then it's just like that whole sequence is so good. It's just so well done, and just what a great way to utilize things that are in universe, like the xenomorph blood, which everyone knows is acid, and playing around with zero G, something that was like established at the very beginning. It's almost like Chekhov's gun. It's like they set up like the zero G thing at the very beginning as soon as they entered the Romulus station, and then like you're like, oh, okay, you kind of forget about it, and then all of a sudden it just comes into play, and it's like, oh my god, like it was so well done, so well done. Major props to them. But that being said, I'll just say like my one thing of fan service where I was like, yes, I love this. Apparently, The reason that Fede Alvarez was inspired to make an Alien movie is because he played the Alien Isolation video game. And in that game, the way that you like save your progress is you find these little save stations throughout. And there's like several of those save stations throughout the film. And so like every time I saw one, I'm like, oh, it's a save station from Alien Isolation. It's so cool. And then like there's also like a part where like they ride like the tram, and I was like, that's another. I don't know if it's necessarily on purpose, but it kind of reminds me of Alien Isolation because you ride a lot of trams in that game. And then there's like a part where they're walking down like these escalators, again, very very Alien Isolation-y. So that was very cool. And then like one other like official slash unofficial kind of fan service, but not Alien related actually, is there's actually a lot of The Last of Us DNA in this movie, particularly Last of Us Part 2. And again, I guess Fede Alvarez is a big gamer because there's like the look that Rain has was directly inspired by Ellie in Last of Us Part 2. Like Isabella Merced's character, Kay, is kind of like a Dina, which is funny because she's playing Dina in season 2 of the HBO adaptation. There was just like a thing I saw earlier where apparently he confirmed this too, but like Navarro, I'm pretty sure it's Navarro. She looks like Lev from Last of Us Part 2, and apparently that was on purpose. Like just like subtle things, but like more like visual based, but like a lot of that stuff was very much like on purpose. So it's like, oh, that's so cool. I love that. It's so good.
Really quickly, one thing, first of all, I didn't know that he put the save stations from Alien Isolation in there. That's cool. So like I'll have to look out for that next time I watch the movie. By the way, that's a game I'm never going to beat. Too spooky. One thing I forgot to mention before when I was talking about like, little Easter egg scenes that I like. So Navarro finds this like cool little X-ray thing at the beginning of the movie, and I wish the trailers wouldn't have spoiled this because I would have loved to have just seen this in the movie because it would have been like, oh man. But like, so Navarro becomes the victim of a chest burster. Like she gets a face hugger latched onto her, and they were able to get it off of her, but by then it's too late. It already laid the egg. So she uses that X-ray thing on her chest, and you can like see the chest burster in there. It's so cool, and it's like super creepy, and it's like I wish they wouldn't have shown that in the trailer because, yeah, that was cool.
I didn't know that this movie was like slightly inspired by The Last of Us, so that's pretty cool to learn. In terms of like scenes that I liked, I think the whole thing was set up pretty well. Like the movie it's like itself. Like I don't know the video game callbacks. I don't know the like references to the other movies. But I mean there was some parts of the film that like definitely was like, hey, we're gonna call back to this. Like Rain, the main girl, and like the ending is very similar to like Ripley's ending in the first movie. And I was like, oh, okay, that's really neat. That's cool. It was like subtle enough that it and different enough that it wasn't like a one for one copy and paste. So it was nice to see them like kind of call back to that original. And like the movie itself is like more of a well, obviously, it's made in 2024, so it's gonna be a little more modern than what the 70s, 60s, 80s? It's not the 60s.
70s.
70s? Yeah, so it's gonna be a little more modern sci-fi vibes than it was in the 70s, because you got 2001: Space Odyssey, and they're like, we like it, let's roll with it, and then the more I don't know high class sci-fi. I don't really know if it would be high class. It's more like we're gonna make you think and then be confused because the ending of 2001: Space Odyssey is confusing. This is not the time for me to talk about 2001: Space Odyssey. I have thoughts on it, but like in terms of like capturing that like sci-fi feel, I think they did a good job here with this new Alien movie. Like I said, it calls back to some of the original stuff, but I don't think anything was like overly like in your face about it. I do like the way they set up Andy's character and like the scene when they're walking through the storage room with all the face crawlers. That was creepy, and I was like, ew, gross. They're like spiders and I don't like it. Can we move on, please? The zero gravity scene, that was cool to watch. And then the guy who gets his heart dissolved by acid blood was interesting because I don't think we've seen that before, and I think one of you mentioned that we haven't really seen it before, so that was interesting. And then in terms of like I know we're talking about, like, more of, like, our favorite things, but, like, I do have to mention that the, like, birthing scene where the guy then dies because of the acid blood, that part with the xenomorph, I was like, no." But, like, they achieved the look and feel of what it yeah. I mean, they did a great job. I just felt extremely uncomfortable during that part, and at the end when, the woman who is pregnant has like a super Umbrella Academy birth style type thing with the xenomorph human, and she's stuck in the pod, and then yeah, I didn't really like those moments, although made me feel uncomfortable and very unpleasant. They achieved what they did and they did it well, and it was interesting for those moments to be in this story because I wasn't really expecting any of that. So to see them be like, we're gonna be different than the other movies and still like achieve that alien feel and also like make sure you remind the audience that this is in fact a horror movie.
One other thing I kind of forgot to mention just before we move on from this topic of like the Easter eggs and whatnot. Another Last of Us Part Two thing is that the planet that they're on, the mining planet, is a mining colony called Jackson's Colony, and so that's a direct reference to like the Jackson town that they have in Last of Us Part Two, like the one that Tommy built up and everything like that. So that was just like another fun little Last of Us Part One and Two reference, I guess. But and then yeah, I mean, you guys both talked about the acid blood death, but this might feel a little bit more unhinged, but that was probably like one of the most satisfying. I mean, I get that he's like the character. I think his name is Bjorn. It like he's comically written to be like just so hateful and mean to Andy, and like I get it, but like again, they were just trying to get the point across, and obviously they did it in spades, but like it just makes that death so satisfying because I feel like if they don't make him almost like comically like hateful and just terrible, if he gets such a gruesome death, it's almost like, oh my god, like what did he do to deserve that? And it's like after watching the movie where he's just the worst and then he basically is the cause that everything happens in the rest of the film, it's like, you know what, he deserved that death. And that was a gnarly freaking death. Like, oh my god, acid blood. Ugh. I will say, like, the ending of it where he just kind of goes, bleh, is kind of a little silly, but it's like, whatever. He probably just got a big drop of the acid blood on his heart or something, and then he died. So, whatever. But all in all, though, very gnarly, very cool, very deserved. And yeah, like what you were talking about, Miranda, the retrofuturism in this film, oof, so good. I love all the CRT TVs, the like wireframe diagrams, like in the scanner, like when they first get on Romulus and he's like using that scanner to see what's behind the doors, like the temperature and stuff. Like, oh, I love that stuff. It's so freaking cool. And he did such a good job of making the world feel so grounded and gritty and like not realistic, but just like lived in. It felt like a real world and like real tech. It was so cool. And they did a really, really good job of emulating that.
Yeah, they definitely did. They took time and effort to be like, okay, let's make the sets. Let's make a animatronic xenomorph. Let's make the face huggers. Let's build up a set. Let's use the old tech. Let's like make it look and feel like it is in this like time period of the alien movies while also calling back to the original movie and the original time frame of which it like takes place because there are movies out there that try to do that but not all of them succeed. Like you really have to put time and effort into making sure that it fits in this. If they were to do anything different, I feel like it would have a drastically different effect and would not flow with where it sits in the timeline of the Alien movies.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. It's so detailed.
Very much, very much so. I think it really cemented this film in the alien lore, in the alien world, in a way that just like sort of saying, oh, like we take place during this time, like couldn't have done. Like they nailed the aesthetic so perfectly, and goodness gracious, it was so glorious. And then like one other last thing that I wanted to talk about that you touched on was the finale with someone. I saw this either on Twitter or Letterboxd or both at this point. I'm not sure where I saw it first, but the Zuckermorph. Oh my gosh, like I'm so glad that they actually went for it and they did it. And I understand that it's going to be divisive for people. We'll get into it more. Either we can do it now or later. I don't know. You guys can decide. But I thought that this movie was just going to end with like sort of the setup for another movie because I'm just so accustomed to this happening now where it's like, and I mean, even in the same franchise or kind of sub franchise, they kind of did something with like, not to spoil this movie, so I guess I won't fully say, but they do something in AVP that could have been the same setup for in this one, but they didn't. They actually kind of show it in this one. But that's kind of vague, but I'll just leave it at that. Yeah, so Isabella Merced's character, Kay, she injects herself with the vial of the black goo, and then it's like we saw a video of what happens when a being is, injected with that. So we're like, oh no, like we know what's going to happen, but we don't know if it's going to happen in this movie or if they're going to set it up for like a sequel or something. Like I for sure thought that they were going to do the thing of like, okay, Kaylee Sweeney like gets, puts her to sleep. Annie's all good. She's going to go into the cryopod, and then the cameras, it's just going to like linger there on the cryo pods, and then all of a sudden it's going to just kind of zoom in a little bit until like the light starts like flashing red or something, and then just kind of goes to black or something. Like I thought it was going to be something like that, just kind of setting up like, oh no, they're going to be in trouble in the next movie or something. I'm so glad they didn't do that because I was not expecting what happened to happen, which is that Isabella Merced is like pulled out of the cryo sleep bed, and then she gives birth to this horrifying alien human hybrid. And like it was cool because it kind of looks like the engineers from Prometheus, and it's just horrifying. It is this super lanky, tall, just horrifying figure. I just keep saying horrifying because I don't know. It's horrifying. Yeah, like I'm not like I wasn't like scared to death or anything, but I'm not. I mean, at this point, I'm so desensitized to horror and like Alien and everything like that like I just wasn't expecting that visual and like this creature. And it was kind of creepy. I'm not gonna lie. Like it didn't scare me, but like it's pretty creepy. So I was a big fan of it. I could see the perspective of like it's stupid. Sure, why not? It's like an alien resurrection thing, whatever. But like, it worked for me here. I thought it was pretty well done, and yeah, like Dan said, it lets like crazy, one of the craziest jump scares in the while, not including the oddity jump scares that for those of you who've watched that movie know. But yeah, like this was a pretty well done jump scare.
Yeah, so let's talk about this now then, since we're on the subject. So yeah, those last 15 to 20 minutes. Now, as I stated before, I was not a fan of it. And the reason being is because unfortunately, like Udi said, you're either going to be in the camp where you're either going to really like this or you're going to think it's stupid. And unfortunately, I'm in that camp where I think it's stupid. I don't know, like this is just me, but like I don't like it when movies try to combine humans with other creatures unless that's the setup for the movie from the start. Like Jurassic Park, for example, one of the running ideas for the original Jurassic Park 4 before it became Jurassic World was human dinosaur hybrids. And I'm sorry, but when you take a long running sci fi franchise and you want to mix them with humans, I don't know. I don't like that idea. But once again, it's just me. Everybody's going to have their personal preferences, but I'm just not a fan of like mixing humans with creatures once again, unless that's the setup from the start, you know? So, yeah, I'm not a fan of it. And like Udi said, it reminded me of Alien Resurrection because Alien Resurrection also did a similar thing, but the difference there is the mother effer in this movie was freaking creepy. The thing in Alien Resurrection was stupid and it looked stupid. This thing actually looked creepy, so I will give them props there. Like they actually made this thing pretty scary. But yeah, I'm just not a fan of it, and I don't know. Once again, it's not bringing the movie down for me. I still thought this was a good movie, but it is taking what could potentially have been like a 4-star Alien movie for me and maybe bringing it down to a 3.5. I mean, once again, I still liked it, but yeah, I just don't like human hybrids. I just think that's a stupid idea, but that's just me.
Alien hybrid creature, like, wouldn't that be like a setup because they like clone Ripley eventually with the xenomorph DNA? So like, it's kind of just adding more context to that. At least that's the way I took it. I don't know, like if there's other stuff going on in the universe or like I don't know, things expanded on in different films, but that's the way I saw it as in the reason why they did it. In terms of the creature's design, unpleasant to look at, not fun, not great. It kind of reminds me of this random Star Trek character that I think is from like Deep Space Nine or something. He also has like a really smooth face. And then the alien, not the alien, the clones of like Rory and Amy. I guess it's probably just Amy in that one episode. No, well, the Doctor too. In that one episode of Doctor Who where there's clones and they just have like really oddly smooth faces and they like melt. I don't know if anyone's you guys aren't gonna know what I'm talking about, but someone out there knows what I'm talking about. So it kind of just reminded me of that. In terms of like why the creature was there or like the actions the creature does, I mean it makes sense, really. I mean, it was bound to happen sometime in this franchise. Is like you can mix them with dogs and humans and like X, Y, and Z. So like for a xenomorph human baby hybrid thingy to happen, I guess makes sense in my mind for this story. It is creepy and they definitely achieved that part of the character design. I believe they got a really tall person to like be the like stand-in for this creature. I vaguely saw something online about that, so that's pretty neat.
They did. It was a basketball player.
Yeah. So, that's cool when they can just like get a really tall person to do something, or it's like a guy in a suit, like the original Xenomorph, or like in Jurassic Park. It's just like people in suits, and it's really cool. I wasn't really sure how this movie was gonna end, but like that ending makes sense to me. Like I don't really have any problems with it. It did like creep me out though. That's the moment like I my knees went straight into my chest. Like I am uncomfortable and I'm sitting here in this recliner seat because it's the nice theater and like ah I can't like and it grossed me out too. A lot of this movie grossed me out, so it's just like ugh, the whole time. But I don't really have any issues with the ending creature or anything of that nature.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, yeah, I also don't have any real issues with it. He was creepy and he worked. And I mean, technically this isn't the first time that we've seen someone give birth, I guess in a way, to like an alien due to the black goo, I'm pretty sure. If I remember correctly, this also happened in Prometheus, but it was a different situation. She tried to get the alien life form removed before technically it was ready, but I don't think that mattered. I think it was a slightly different black goo or something, because instead of being a xenomorph or like an alien human hybrid, it was like a tentacle monster. So I don't know the lore stuff for why that was that and this was this, but either way, well done, and I was happy with it. And yeah, like I liked Fede Alvarez's previous works in the 2013 Evil Dead reboot movie. I guess it's a reboot, reimagining maybe. And I liked the idea of Don't Breathe, which is funny because if you think about it, this movie is kind of Don't Breathe, but in the Alien universe. I know other people have brought that up online, and it's kind of true. It's a very similar premise, but like you know what, I'm here for it. I think it works. I liked it. Whatever. It is what it is. But yeah, I thought it worked for me, and I really like him and his directing sensibilities because yeah, I really like this movie. So
I'll take my chances with a killer daredevil over a xenomorph.
I mean, yeah, at least you have a better chance than with the perfect organism. So But anyway, I thought, we're talking about one of the scariest parts of the movie and probably one of the scariest parts in the franchise, I guess, depending on how you feel. But yeah, this franchise is kind of interesting because it originated as a sci-fi horror flick, and it's kind of evolved in different ways. James Cameron made the sequel Aliens and made it more actiony, and then Alien 3 and 4 and Prometheus and Covenant, to varying degrees, were a little bit more philosophical and had a bit more like thematic content. Whether or not, again, that was achieved properly is really up to the individual to decide that. I've seen some people arguing that, those, like, in between those four movies, it's like, oh, there's so much rich lore there and so much like rich thematic content, blah 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 blah. But like for a lot of other people, they just can't get over how like stupid some of those movies are. Which, I mean, again, totally fair, valid either way. People love them, people hate them. It is what it is. But that being said, how do you guys feel? Like, would you prefer if the Alien franchise kind of kept going with like this sort of like horror genre, like it kind of brought it back with this one? Not that it ever fully went away, but again, like this is way more of like a horror movie than a lot of the other ones. Or would you prefer kind of went more action again, kind of like Aliens, more philosophy, or maybe just a mix of all of it? Like, do you think at this point the franchise is just so intertwined with all of those like genres that it should just bounce between all of them? What do you guys think?
Yeah, I personally think it should continue just being a mix of all of those ideas because I do feel like the franchise has already been intertwined with all of them. Like it can be a horror movie, it can be an action movie, or it can be philosophical like you were saying. So I think it should continue to just branch out like that because I mean, I don't want. Now, this is just my personal preference, but I wouldn't want every single alien related thing to just stick to one genre because, like, while I do like it when Alien is horror like this, I think it works when it's horror because the xenomorph is a scary creature, So, and the facehuggers are creepy. So, like, it works for horror, but I also like well, it's not dumb action, but I also just like the, action with the space marines and like killing xenomorphs and whatnot. That stuff's cool too. So I would love to see like just both of those ideas just continue to push forward. And then like well, I mean, once again, I don't remember too much about Alien 3 or 4 and whatnot and like more of the philosophical movies, but still I think Alien is a franchise that is rich with a whole bunch of different ideas and like it should really be up to what the filmmakers and the people working on the project want to do. If they want to do a horror movie or a horror show, do it. They want to do like an action movie like James Cameron did with Aliens, just yeah, do that then. Or if they want to do something more philosophical, like I'm all for it. I think that Alien can fit with either of those genres that were mentioned. So I'm all for it. Heck, Alien can even be for children because believe it or not, there is an Alien children's book about learning the alphabet. I am dead serious. So
Yeah, I forgot about that.
yeah, so
Insane.
make it a freaking children's toddler show. Good, base it off that book.
I think the Alien franchise is intertwined with like action, horror, philosophy, all of that jazz. I also think it's relative to the time period of which the movie is being made. So the first one was a sci-fi horror. Then you have the sequels, which are more actiony because actiony movies were like popular in the 80s, like Die Hard and all that jazz. So they're gonna kind of go into the more like it went more into the popular genre. I'm not really sure if the tens were like philosophically like if that was a trend going on there. Horror has gotten to a point where they're more like brain pieces or like I can't remember the term, but there's a term. But basically the horror movies have just gotten a little more like thinky about their topics. So like maybe that's why they went more into like the philosophy side of things. So like I guess it's in the way I'm seeing it is just dependent on the time period of which being made. And I say that and then look at this movie and it's like, well, this doesn't feel like a superhero movie to me. It doesn't feel like XYZ that we're seeing in the media right now. So like it seems like they're sticking with like that original sci-fi with slight action in it, which I enjoy and I liked seeing.
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess I'll just say, I mean, yeah, I think it's been an interesting franchise just because there is so much, I guess, depth to this franchise in the sense that it can be horror, it can be action, it can be philosophical, and it's all, sci-fi, and just it's a really interesting franchise as a result, and the lore is kind of interesting. At least like I really only aware of like stuff you pick up in the movies and like a little bit in the games and whatnot. But yeah, and I mean, like just the basic premise alone is interesting still. So I, that being said, for me, like I was so glad that this is a return to form and just more horror based. I really feel like this works. This franchise, this property works really well as horror. I mean, it works really well as everything else. Like, don't get me wrong. And again, like I was saying before, if the other ones that are looked down upon, 3, 4, Prometheus, Covenant, if those had nailed the ideas that they had, like for example, if the studio hadn't meddled as much in the process of 3 and 4, like those might have turned out really, really great. And Prometheus and Covenant again, like even whether or not if they had more time to cook in the oven, or just like I don't know, if they had gotten a couple more passes in the scripts or whatever, like there's so many different ideas and whatnot in them that like are really interesting that just didn't pan out to like make an interesting movie. But if they had, again, like might have been really, really like amazing. So again, I fully agree with you guys that like this franchise should just continue kind of bouncing around between different things. Personally, I would be okay if they did another horror, like more horror based alien movie for the next one. Again, I love horror, so that for me is already like a huge win if they'd go that way. But two, just like I really like this franchise when it goes more horror, because it should be kind of horrific. Like you're witnessing all these terrible things you're watching humans be incubated and then like used as a host body to birth this alien life form that's going to go and then eat and or further impregnate other humans. Like terrifying, but also like the xenomorphs are really cool. Like one of the greatest cinematic creature designs ever. Like, oh my god, it's so freaking interesting to look at. And that is like another aspect where across the board in the franchise, like there's been some pretty crazy and wacky designs that have been in the world, but there's also been some really, really interesting ones. So yeah, again, like I'll be happy as long as whatever the next film, I guess there's a show coming out next year, so hopefully that'll be good. I don't really know anything about it. But yeah, whatever the next movie ends up being, as long as it's like on the same level of quality as this, like I'll be a happy camper, And if they ever want to make a sequel to Alien Isolation or like more, I guess there's kind of like a VR game coming out as well. It's kind of Alien Isolation So I guess for the gamers out there that want to keep an eye out for that, I guess watch out for that. But hey, for that, if you ever want to play Dead Space, I don't know if you have already, but just putting it out there, you should probably play the Dead Space remake on PS5. It's very good, just in case you get inspired or anything. Which I will just say, because if anyone's listening, I get that Dead Space is inspired by Alien, so it'd be kind of like he'd be doing the same thing in a way. But Dead Space is just so freaking good. It's so good. Anyway, I know we touched on this earlier a little bit, but not too much. So I wanted to give us the opportunity to discuss it further. But this movie did something interesting that they haven't done before. I guess not just one thing. They've done a couple of things, but this is like a main thing, that they had this relationship between Rain and Andy. They're siblings. However, Andy is an android. And I think it was Dan that said this. I don't think they've ever done that before in this universe, where like they had such a direct connection to like between a human and an android, where they're siblings, And yeah, I just like it's a really interesting idea for the franchise. They've never really shown an android relationship like this. And I feel like it really helped to build this emotional core to the film that if this hadn't been there, I feel like would have made the film feel a lot more hollow. But I feel like this really did add something interesting to it. But yeah, what did you guys think? How did you feel about the relationship between Reen and Andy? And would you like to see them try to explore more interesting android human relationship dynamics in future films?
Yeah, I thought this was a really cool idea because, like I mentioned before, this is not something that, at least as far as I'm aware, that the Alien franchise has ever explored. And I thought it was cool because, yeah, you got these synthetics like living among humans. You would think eventually, sooner or later, there would be someone that would develop a relationship with one of these synthetics, whether it's like a sibling relationship like that, or, maybe something else. Who knows? But, yeah, I thought this was cool. I really liked it. It was a unique idea, and I would like to see more alien projects implement ideas like this. I thought it was interesting. And Andy is best boy, as I need to say again.
He's the best boy.
Did like Andy's character. I thought it was interesting the way they handled his character. From like the first moment, I was like, nah, I like this guy. If anything bad happens to him, I will be upset. He's like the only character that I had any like reaction to. Everyone else is kind of just like people there. I don't know. I prefer side characters usually, but I guess in this case, he's not really a side character. He's like one of the two main characters. But Andy's character was cool. I liked how they like handled his story and like the chip that they have to put in the synthetics like neck so they can like do their directive and all that jazz. I think the performer, I don't know his real name, but I think he did a good job at like portraying. Oh, he's in RYE Lane.
Are you talking about Rye Lane?
Yes, thank you.
Funny, because I just watched that movie last night.
Yeah, I think the person who plays Andy is the main guy in that
You are
movie.
correct. Yes,
Yeah.
Andy is in that movie. Yeah.
So I was like, oh, he seems familiar. Also, apparently, one of the women in this movie also is in a movie called Let It Snow, which I did not realize. I was like, oh, that's neat. Anyways, back to my thoughts. So I like the way they had his character and did a good job at like portraying Andy without the chip in and then with the chip and then so then that brings up the dynamic between him and Rain and I liked like their dynamic as well. I think it is very interesting to see because you haven't really seen this in an alien movie. So it was unique in that aspect. Because really, at least to my knowledge, you've only ever seen synthetics or like androids or whatnot kind of just be evil. And this time around, you get to see. Well, that's not really the case for aliens. But, anyways, this time around, you get to see like how a human and like an android can interact when they're not in like aren't scientists on a ship, or like Marines on a ship. So it was a nice dynamic to see. I think it'd be cool if they could explore that a bit more in the franchise if they plan on making more. And I did get vague like Blade Runner vibes. I think Udi, you mentioned that someone says that some of this movie is canonical to their movie or something of that nature.
Ridley Scott, the original director of Alien and Blade Runner.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So like yeah, by knowing that, I don't know if that's why I got the vibes, but it'd just be interesting to see more dynamics. It'd also kind of just be nice to see people on a planet not fighting to the death with an alien, too. I think that'd be an interesting dynamic to see, like at the beginning of the film when they were on the planet. I found that very interesting. But if they want to do more, I'm here for it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, I'm here for it. This movie really reignited my Alien love because Yeah, I mean, like I said, I kind of got burnt by Alien Covenant. It was disappointing, and like again, like it's a visually gorgeous film. The score is pretty good and has some interesting ideas, but again, I just that movie is just so messy. And like if you can overlook all of its shortcomings and can see a diamond in the rough, like good for you. But I don't hate that movie or anything, and I don't think it's like the worst movie ever. I'm not saying that, but I also just don't think that it's messy. I'll just leave it at that. But yeah, this movie really reignited my love for the Alien franchise, and so like I've been playing a little bit of Alien games here and there for short bursts of time, and I meant to watch the movies before, but I didn't have time. So hopefully I'll be able to watch them all again soon. But yeah, I think that this relationship between Andy and Rain was really good, really, really well done. I thought that there was some nice depth there because, like, I think the implication there too with Andy is that he could be like autistic, even though he's an android. Like, he could be like a stand-in for like an autistic sibling, and like how one sibling deals with, not deals with, I guess, but like handles their life with their sibling. And like the more important thing here is like they show the love that Rain has for Andy, no matter, even though he's like quote unquote different and he's not human, and like all these other characters are like, well, he's not human, and it's like, but it doesn't matter to Rain. She still loves him as her brother. And so I just think that like that dynamic was really beautiful and really well done. I really love Kaylee Spaney, and I'm definitely a big fan of David Johnson. After this movie, I'm really looking forward to watching Rylane and anything else he's in. I thought he was phenomenal in this film. But yeah, I've been a fan of Kaylee Spaney for like ever since I saw her in Pacific Rim Uprising. So yeah, both of them like really great here. Like they didn't necessarily have like the most to do. I would say David had a bit more to do just because he got to play two roles, kind of. But with what they did have and like the limited time together and everything, I thought they did a really, really great job of really making this relationship feel real and like a true loving and caring sibling relationship. I really love the situation that Rain finds herself in once basically all hell's broken loose. Tyler has died trying to protect Rain from the xenomorph, and then Kay is like bleeding out and dying, and Andy is on the floor because he got attacked by the xenomorph and he's seizing, and like she had to run away to like save her life and save Kay, but it's like all hell is broken loose. Like her love interest is dead. I say love interest because I don't know if they were actually like together, or if they were exes, or if they were like I don't quite know. But I'll just say that. But yeah, so like that's all happening, and like all hell's breaking loose. She doesn't know what to do, and but like you can see her conflict of like, do I just leave him? Like I'm upset with Andy, and like I don't know if I can trust him, and I don't know if I can fix him, and you know you can almost like feel the remorse of like she feels bad that she used him to help them try to get to Viaga or Vaga. I don't know how to say Vaga. I don't know, something like that. The planet they want to go to, because like if they go, then she either couldn't take him, or like if she took him, then like it'd be bad. Don't fully remember the exact details of why he couldn't go. Like I know that it was something to do with Wayland Yutani and it not them not being there. But anyway, but yeah, so basically she's in a rock and a hard place, and she has to make a choice. Like, do I go back for him and risk my life and risk, all this for my brother, who everyone's like, oh, well, he's not real. He's not a real boy. He's just this robot that your dad got for you. But no, she sticks to her guns. She loves her brother, and it doesn't matter that he's different. It doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. She loves her brother. And so she hits the stop on the elevator, and then she gives Kay directions to try to, make sure that she gets away safely. And then she sacrifices her life, really, because I don't know that she expected to fully get out of that situation. And she almost did it. But she outsmarted the situation she was in, and then she was able to save him, rescue her brother, bring him back to how he is and was. And then even though they got trapped because of Rook, then they figured it out with the zero G thing. So it's just like, it's just a really great character moment where, you have all this conflict in this character, and you have all these characters that are her friends and people that she cares about kind of not really being that great to Andy. Like they're all basically just using him because he's an android and he had access to Mother and the functionality of Romulus. So I don't know. I felt like it was a really great way to develop their relationship and also to just add way more depth to this movie through character than if they hadn't been in the movie. And they're like just the line delivery after Andy finally comes back and she gets the bad chip out and she just goes like, "Oh, Andy," or something like that. Like there's something so 70s about that line delivery that I just loved. That's just like a minor me thing, but yeah, just overall really love their dynamic, and I would definitely be down for them to do more interesting android human relationships in the films. They don't have to be carbon copies of this. If anyone can think of any other ideas, that'd be cool. Or I don't know. Like, heck, what if they just did a whole Alien movie where everyone? I guess they couldn't do this. It wouldn't make sense. Never mind. I was gonna say if they were all androids, but that would be kind of lame. There would be no xenomorphs or anything because they wouldn't be able to be born. So I don't know. But yeah, just if you could figure out interesting ways to play around with that, I'm totally here for that because it's very well done. And yeah. But yeah, now that we've talked about that and like that aspect of the film, I just thought it would be interesting. How would you guys rank Alien Romulus amongst the other Alien films in the franchise? Let's start with you, Miranda. How would you rank the franchise?
I've only seen 4 of them, so everything I haven't seen is tied for last place.
Okay.
Actually, no. We'll put 3 at last just because it made me feel gross. Actually, no. Based on what I know about the other ones, we could tie all those to last place, and then we'll put Alien, and then Aliens 2, and then Alien Romulus, and then Alien 3. That's how I would rank it. How would you rank it, Dan?
Yeah. Oh, this is a good question. So, I think if I'm gonna rank the Alien movies, even though I just stated I'm not a big horror guy, I would probably put the original Alien at number one. It's such a well-crafted movie. It was the one that started it all. And yeah, I mean, I know there are some people that do prefer Aliens over Alien, but I'm going to put Alien at number one. At number two, I'm probably going to put Aliens. At number three, I'd probably put Romulus. At number four, I don't know if I should put Prometheus at number four or if I should put Covenant at number four. I'm going to go with Prometheus only because I remember Prometheus more than I do Covenant. And there are some aspects to Prometheus that I actually really do like. Like, I love the score. Like, there's a certain musical score or musical piece in Prometheus that honestly, like, is the essence of exploring space. Like if I was out exploring space, yeah, like just going to different planets, visiting different solar systems, that theme I'm thinking of from Prometheus is what would be playing. Like, so yeah, and I think Prometheus is also like just a very like pretty movie. I love the landscape shots that are shown in it and whatnot. So yeah, I'm gonna put Prometheus at number four. I'm gonna put Alien Covenant at number five. I'm gonna put Alien 3 at number 6, and I'm gonna put Alien Resurrection at number 7. What about you, Udi? How would you rank these movies?
I would have to go with Alien for number one, of course. It was the first one I saw, and again, as a more horror-oriented person, I really like what it did, and I think it's an incredible work of art for its time. And again, just some of the best set design, creature design, production design, just overall art design in cinema ever. It's just so good. And shout out to H.R. Giger / H.R. Geiger, however you pronounce it. Yeah, shout out to him. He is otherworldly. Yeah, so number one, Alien. Number two, Aliens. Number three, Alien Romulus. What? New top three? What's crazy? Number four, Prometheus. And this is where it kind of gets fuzzy because I don't really remember 3 that well or Resurrection that well. But I'm going to go with Alien 3, 4, 5. That's kind of a confusing sentence. Alien Covenant for number 6. And then Alien Resurrection for 7. From what I remember, I did like the thematic content of Alien 3. I thought it was interesting, and I thought it was, despite everything, it wasn't as terrible as I had heard some people make it out to be. But again, I'd have to watch it again for sure. But I'm gonna put it there for now. It might end up changing once I actually do fully rewatch all of them. But yeah, like again, Alien Covenant, visually gorgeous film, some decent performances, and it's not a bad movie. It was just disappointing, and it's not what I wanted after Prometheus. So it is what it is. But again, not a bad movie. And yeah, that's how I would rank the franchise.
I just want to say real quick for the record, because the vibe I'm getting from like Alien 3 is I feel like it's becoming one of those movies that's kind of turning around in the fan base. Like people hated it at first, but I think some people are kind of coming around to it. That's not the case with Alien Covenant, and I ranked Alien Covenant above Alien 3. I will say that I don't remember Alien Covenant that well, but I do remember liking it more than Alien 3, but that could change after I rewatch them. So that's not like my final decision, but in case anybody gets mad at me for ranking Alien Covenant above Alien 3.
Yeah, I can't say I disagree. I mean, again, I'm going off of like what I remember. And Alien 3 and Resurrection were a while ago, so I could be totally off the mark here from like my own opinion, just because it's been so long. But yeah, you're definitely not wrong. On Twitter, there's like a crazy wave of people being like, actually, Prometheus and Covenant and 3 and Resurrection were actually like masterpieces, and they're so much better than Romulus, and they're so much better than blah blah blah. It's like, it's all these film Twitter people who are always like, oh, I'm going to be different, and that's actually better because I'm different. Just look, people can have different opinions, but I honestly feel like all the film Twitter stuff is always in the same thing of like, well, I'm just going to have a different opinion than you because I'm better than you, and it's not actually because they have an actual good opinion of that movie. They might actually like those movies, but I don't feel like that seed was planted just out of like, oh man, I watched this movie and I loved it. It's more of like, this movie's better than this new movie because this movie's new and blah 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 blah. I don't know. I'm so jaded against film Twitter, so anything they do and say, I'm automatically jaded against, and I don't receive very well. But look, if you like those movies and you watched them recently, props to you. I'm glad you like them. I don't remember them that well. I remember Covenant and Prometheus pretty well, but 3 and 4, who's to say? But yeah, you're definitely not wrong about some people, at least on Twitter, doing that, Dan. So, but all right. Anywho, let's move on to rankings. Miranda, how would you rank Alien Romulus?
First number that popped in my head was a 3.5, so we'll go 3.5. This movie has an interesting premise. It has special effects done practically. It calls back to the original without being in your face about it. Although I feel like some people would disagree on that, but at least for me, in general, it's just a fun, casual, grotesque movie to watch if you got a Saturday afternoon. If you haven't seen it, go see it.
All right. What about you, Dan? How would you rank Alien Romulus?
Yeah, so I think I'm going to agree with Miranda here. I'm also going to go with a 3.5 out of 5. Once again, I really did like this movie. I know that it may seem like I didn't based off of my feelings towards the ending, but no, I really did like this movie, and I will admit the ending did kind of influence my rating, because if it wouldn't have been for the human xenomorph hybrid idea, I probably would have given this movie 4 stars. But I just think that the human xenomorph hybrid idea is stupid, and I'm sorry. I know there's probably gonna be a lot of people that disagree with me, but I think it's stupid. And like Udi had brought up a good point outside of this podcast episode from before. He had brought up a good point, like that's technically what Weyland Yutani like eventually wants to get to with the xenomorph. Like they do eventually want to make human xenomorph hybrids, which okay, fine, but still, I'm just not a fan of. So like it makes sense. It makes sense for the movie, but I'm just not a fan of it personally. But it's still a great movie. If you love Alien, I'd highly recommend this. So yeah, I'm gonna give it 3.5 out of 5.
Very good point. I applaud myself for making such a good point. hats off to me. No, just kidding. But yeah, that's totally fair. And like even though I liked it and I enjoyed it, I can totally understand feeling like the ending was a bunch of baloney. Like it is kind of a crazy concept to wrap your head around. Again, like in universe, it can kind of make sense, but it doesn't necessarily mean you have to like it. So that's fair. But yeah, so for me, I'm gonna go and give it a 4 out of 5. Ho-ho. I really liked it. Again, I was trying really hard not to get hyped for this movie. Like I would watch the trailer in theaters and be like, God, this movie looks so visually amazing, and like I love the cast. I'm very excited for this. You know, I liked Evil Dead 2013. I liked Don't Breathe enough. There's some stuff I didn't love about that movie, but I still thought it was an interesting movie overall. So yeah, so like I was excited to see what Fede Alvarez would do with the franchise, and I was like, some people might not agree with this, but I was just happy to see someone other than Ridley Scott in charge of Alien. Like, just, I mean, he produced it, but like someone else at the helm, I guess I should say. I'm not like a Ridley Scott hater, but I do feel like you get this with a lot of like older, long running directors like James Cameron and him, where like, look, I get it. They've made really successful and iconic films. And so I'm sure to some degree that changes your perception and like reality and whatever. But I'm not the biggest fan of super egotistical people. And I feel like, me personally, I feel like they're both very egotistical, and like, they're just like, yeah, well, so what? I made super successful movies. My opinion matters more than whoever else said this, or blah, 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 blah. Like last year when like Ridley Scott was promoting the Napoleon movie and historians were like, that's not accurate. And he's like, F you, I don't care. It's like, oh my God, okay, whatever. And like some people would call this iconic, whatever, but like he had a Letterboxd interview recently where they asked him what his top 4 favorite films are, and he named Blade Runner as one of his favorite films. He made the movie. It's like, look, I get it. Like, it's a fantastic movie. It's one of my favorite movies, but like, man.
I just want to say that is like the literal like literal version of that meme where Obama is giving like a medal to himself. That is literally what that is.
Literally. Like, it's kind of funny, but also it's like, oh my God, of course you would. So, and he kind of trash talked Denis Villeneuve, even though Denis did like a phenomenal job with Blade Runner 2049, like as good of a job as anyone, maybe even more so than like Ridley Scott could have done. He did a phenomenal job, and yes, I'm a Denis fanboy, whatever. But like, you can't say that movie is not fantastic. I mean, you might not love it, I guess, but at least on a technical standpoint, it's fantastic. Whatever. I love it. I love all of it, but that's just me. So yeah. Anyway, it was just nice to see someone else in charge of Alien, in the same way that it was nice to see Denis in charge of Blade Runner. And I'm excited for the new Blade Runner Amazon show, and I'm intrigued to see if anyone else gets a chance to do another Alien film. I will also add the note of, I'm aware that Alien 3 was not directed by Ridley Scott, and that Resurrection was also not directed by Ridley Scott. I'm aware of that, just to make that clear. It's just like those two kind of exist in a weird vacuum to me. So I'm aware of that, just to be clear. But anywho, yeah, so I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. So that means that the Atomic Lizard's score for Alien Romulus is a 3.66, which means it is a 3.5 out of 5.
Thank you so much for joining us and listening to our conversation about Alien Romulus. If you're interested in hearing more, check out our previous episodes, and as always, you can find us on Instagram at Atomic Lizards Pod and on Letterboxd at Atomic_Lizards.